Tracie.
Yeah. Welcome to Intuitive Motion Pilates Move Well video series on Instagram Live. Hi, I'm Tracie Matthews, Master Pilates Trainer, Dynamic Embodiment Practitioner, and founder of Intuitive Motion Pilates. I specialize in working with clients suffering from chronic pain and injury recovery. Welcome to my Move Well series, and my special guest today is a wonderful choreographer and Caron Eule. And for full disclosure, I just wanted to mention that I'm a true fan of Caron's work. We've been friends and we've known each other for a very long time, and we were introduced by our mutual friend Fujita, who was one of Caron's East Coast dancers and also participated in my Move Well series last summer. You and I chatted about our favorite Pilates props. So if you're interested in looking back at one of the videos that we did then, I highly recommend that one. It was really fun. We had a lot of fun talking about Pilates props. Now let me get to properly introducing Caron today. Caron is founder and artistic director of Eule Dance. She formed her dance company in New York City in 2001 and then relocated to Los Angeles in 2014. They have, Eule Dance Company has presented work at the Ailey City Corp Theater, the Merce Cunningham Studio, the Choreography Festival at the McCullen Theater, and in Edinburgh Fringe Festival, at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. That's a mouthful. And since relocating to Los Angeles, the company has performed at the Electric Lodge, Lula Washington's Dance All Day Festival, Beginnings, and Dance on the Edge, San Diego, to name a few. According to Rebecca Barnard, or Show Business Weekly, Eule's work is innovative. It often exercises a nice dose of humor that complements the beautiful forms her choreography exhibits with the dancers' bodies. So let's get started with talking to Caron and finding out more about choreography and her dance company, which, as I mentioned earlier, I'm a huge fan, and I've been, excuse me, it's really hot today, seeing her dances for a long time. So the first I want to do is congratulate you on 20 years of Eule Dance. And I just think that's a huge, inspiring accomplishment. The dance field, the dance community, it's just a hard achievement to do for so many people. And thanks for joining us. And, you know, I just wanted to acknowledge that you've been doing this for 20 years and doing it successfully for 20 years. What inspired you to become a choreographer and a dancer?
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you so much for the congratulations. It's hard for me to believe that we've been doing this for 20 years, especially since I'm only 25.
Oh, of course, yes. We're
right,
all 25.
of course. So as a dancer and choreographer, I grew up studying ballet like many little girls and some little boys do. And in high school, I was introduced to modern dance and choreography. We had a really great director of our high school dance company named Janet Roston, who kind of opened my eyes to the world of modern dance. Now we sometimes call it contemporary dance, and choreography. And she really inspired me. We had these performances where the dancers got to audition their choreography to get into the performance. And she really encouraged me to explore choreography. I remember she showed me VHS tapes back in the day of Mark Morris. And Mark Morris is still one of my favorite choreographers. And seeing that just got me going and got the juices flowing. And at the time, I'm not anymore, but at the time I was really good at math. So I liked the idea of using bodies and music to make patterns and formations and really play with the musicality. So that's how I started choreographing, and then we were introduced to guest choreographers, and people started telling me about how you can major in dance in college and make a career of it and become a modern dancer and become a choreographer. So I started applying to colleges, and I ended up going to SUNY Purchase and got my BFA in dance there. So yeah, that's how I was introduced to choreography.
So you knew early on, like, this is what you wanted to do, and that was your college career pursuit. Like, that was what you went to school for.
Right. Yeah. I mean, early on, I loved dancing and I knew I wanted to do something with it. I didn't know it would become my career. But when I graduated, I got a lot of jobs teaching dance, and then I started choreographing a little here and there. And then I realized that I had this great group together and I could make it a company and just start going as a company. And then in 2001, we've had our first official Seoul dance show called Clean Springing. And it was at a place called Wax in Williamsburg, which was a beautifully converted warehouse type space. We did many shows there. And unfortunately now with the gentrifying of Williamsburg, it's a condo. But it was great to start my beginning days there. And yeah, I love choreographing. I love working with other dancers. I love working with musicians and visual artists, as I'll talk about a little more later.
Yeah, no, I want to get into some of that. But before we go into like specific dances and things like that, I wanted to see if you could walk us through what is your process to come up with your dances. Like, do you start with the music? Do you start with a concept? Do you start with like looking at the dancers' movement, their bodies? Can I give us an idea of how that creative process works for you?
Sure. It depends on the piece. Usually I have a concept in mind, and sometimes it lines up with, I go out to see a lot of music and a lot of performances. Sometimes I'll meet a composer who I'm really excited about choreographing to, and then I'll take my idea and we'll meet and collaborate and talk about how we can create a piece together. Sometimes the concept finds me. There's a visual artist, Yulia Lanina, who I've done 3 different projects with. And sometimes she'll approach me and she said, for instance, I'm creating these giant butterfly wings, and can you make a piece out of that? So then we would talk and figure out how I can make a piece out of that. And like, for example, another piece, actually, I brought some postcards to show you some images. So the piece I was just talking about, these are our butterfly dancers.
Oh, yeah. So I forgot to mention that in Instagram, when people see it, it's inverted. So any writing, it's backwards. My sign behind me is actually, because it shows the mirror image. But just so everybody, like, look through a mirror if you're watching this on video.
Well, you can see the image of the dancers.
Yeah.
Another piece, for example, this is called the Crane Wife. And I'll show you the back. We had some Japanese dancing in it. But
so turn it to the side so we can see them, because it's like so that's better.
Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, I'm moving it opposite way. So for instance, that piece, I met this amazing violinist, Meg Okura, who was performing in another piece in my show, and at the same time I found this book in the library called The Crane Wife, or in Japanese, Tsuru no Ongaishi. I hope I said that right. You. And I had this idea of creating a full-length ballet theater piece about this fable. And this Japanese violinist, Meg Okura, and I started speaking, and she was interested in composing for dance. And with that collaboration, we made this full piece. So yeah, so I'd say it's usually the idea, then the composer, and you asked about the dancers. Then when I choreograph on dancers, I have specific dancers in mind for specific pieces, but then I create the movement based on what I think looks good on them. Sometimes there's some collaboration and improvisation with it, but a lot of the movement comes out of what I think best serves that dancer.
So I believe I've seen some of the ones that you've mentioned actually when they were performed, and the one with the butterfly wings, that was the one in the building on the corner in Manhattan. It was like this glass floor to ceiling giant space. It was amazing that was in the city. And as I mentioned, our friend Fujita, she mentioned it to me at work and said, "Hey, I'm going to be performing, and why, you know?" And some of our other colleagues were part of your company, which I didn't know at the time. And I went there, and I'm like, "Oh, I know everyone in there," and they were like doing this amazing performance, and it was just, for me, that experience of going there and walking by and having this live art exhibit happening just for passerbyers, you know, just for people walking, happened to be there. I went as there as a destination, but most people just happened to buy it, and people would stop and they would watch and they would enjoy it. And it's one of the amazing things that I love about New York City, when New York City is at its fullest. You know, that was a long time ago, and things have really changed for everyone. But
Yeah.
I really just cherish that memory of going there and seeing the performance. And it was one of the things that I noticed about being a fan of your work, is that I truly appreciate that your work always leaves me feeling good and happy. And it's like there's a pleasantness to it, and it's not like, you know, trying to get me to save the planet, or you know, like you know, it's fine if I enjoy works like that as well, but I also really like things that make me feel good when I'm done watching it. And it's art. It just doesn't have to be anything crazy. And I truly mean that as a compliment. I really do value it. I also did see the piece, I think that was at Cunningham, with the violinist, and just for people who haven't seen it, do you have a recording of that one with the violinist?
Yeah, so that one is called Spiral Songs. I have a YouTube channel. It's just C Eule Dance, and you can click on Spiral Songs. And with that was the beginning. I've always loved to work with musicians, not just as accompaniment, but to have them incorporated into the piece and being one of the dancers on stage. So I had that idea. Actually, the inspiration for that piece came from, I went to a wedding, and in this wedding, the bride played violin. So the bride and about 10 other violinists walked in a circle playing violin. And I was so moved by these violinists moving. So I said, how can I incorporate this into a dance? So I met Colin Jacobson, who's the composer and the violinist in that piece. And yeah, we worked together on what kind of partnering could we do while he's playing the violin. What movement it was a string quartet, what movement could they do while dancers were dancing around them? And it was just a really fun experiment. At the end of that piece, I had all the musicians and the dancers, except the one violinist, went to the floor and rolled on the floor. And that was quite a challenge.
And I have to say, they did not miss a beat, and they played their instruments the entire time. It was just, it was an incredible experience to be in the audience. And there was also like this wonderful energy, the performance that I went to, where I felt like the audience and the performance really came together and just had like this really nice energy of being in the moment, being present in the moment, and just taking everything in on both ends. And I that was definitely one of my favorite pieces that I've seen. And going back to kind of keeping us on you know, the questions that I have in mind to ask you, it is in your bio, you mentioned you started out on the East Coast and then now are on the West Coast. How was that transition for you and your team?
It was a challenge, definitely. I mean, in New York, I had a core group of dancers that I'd worked with for years. I had a community of musicians and visual artists and lighting designer. So when I came to LA, I basically had to start from scratch. So there are beautiful dancers in LA, but a lot of them, their focus isn't on being in a dance company. Their focus is doing commercial work and being in music videos. So it's hard to get dancers that will stick with you and commit to being in a performance when they get a better paying gig to go somewhere for 2 weeks and then they're gone. So It's been okay. I have found festivals to participate in, and small theaters to perform in, but it's not the same as being in New York, and the performances have been more spaced out as I try to navigate my way around the LA dance scene, because it is very different to New York. The other issue I would say is there's a greater appreciation of live dance and live theater in New York City. It's just like a normal thing that people go out and see, you know, even if you're not a dancer, you just go out and see shows. In LA, people don't go out to see shows as much, so it's harder to plug your show. You know, when I tell people, oh, my dance company is performing at this theater, they say, oh, is that your kids that you teach, or is that like they don't quite understand the culture of New York. So yeah, it's definitely been a challenge, but I've been doing what I can and plugging my way through.
So are there other dance companies in California that have like a different kind of, I guess, business model? I guess that would be the way, or just model of working than the New York way of doing things?
I'm not sure if it's that different. There are a few companies in LA that are really succeeding and doing great work, like Body Traffic, for instance, is one of them. But what happens in LA is the audiences don't really go to see the local dance companies. But when a major company like Batsheva comes and performs at the Royce Hall in UCLA, it's packed. So yeah, so it's hard to get that appreciation for the smaller local companies.
Yes, New York is very supportive of the growing community, people starting out, and artists figuring out their voices and everything.
So. Right, and also I found it so much easier to connect to a community of artists and performers in New York. In LA, everything's kind of spread out. Yes. So that makes it harder as well. But there are a couple of things you said earlier that I wanted to touch on, if you don't mind me rewinding.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, please do.
Okay. No, so you're talking about seeing the butterfly piece in that gallery. And I just wanted to say one of the things I really enjoy doing besides performing in conventional theaters is performing in these unconventional spaces and having unsuspecting viewers walk by, like, well, you knew it was happening, but most of the people in Midtown walked by and they had no idea, and they stopped and they watched dance. So I love to expose unsuspecting people to dance. We performed not only in art galleries, we performed in parks, on a pier, in schools, but yeah, I just loved having those performances. We had one in a office building near Bryant Park. We did a piece about Alice in Wonderland in that office building, and people were sitting there drinking their coffee, reading the newspaper, and then all of a sudden these dancers came in, and then they got to watch it. So yeah, that was definitely something exciting that I loved to do. And you also, sorry.
Oh, was there another thing?
Yeah, you spoke about my dances being happy,
yes.
Which is great. I love making the audience feel happy and enlightening them. But I do have some sad pieces. I would say none of my pieces are like dark and brooding, because I always want to show beauty and the line and the dance. But one of my greatest compliments is when people say that piece made me cry, brought tears to my eyes, because that shows that it moved them. So for instance, I think my last piece was called Zero Tolerance, about the crisis with separating the families at the border. And I collaborated with an amazing composer named Sid Samberg, who's a good friend, and he's also the piano teacher for my family. And that piece was very moving, partly because of his music. And yeah, so I was touched when people said that made me
Well, I will
cry.
definitely look that up. I did look up some of the current pieces, and I posted one on my Facebook page this morning to promote our stream and discussion. It was the COVID one with everyone in different rooms and everything. I really liked it, and I shared that. So, and I love the fact that you've been still creating things even with the constraints of COVID, and you know, and the constraints of being in California. but you never stop. You're always creating stuff. And I really do mean that, you know, I appreciate art that makes me feel anything, and happy or sad or anything. Like if you can create a feeling, and to, you know, that's like one of the main purposes of art, is to move people in any direction. What I was wondering about, and going back a little bit to the business of choreography, you know, and I don't think we've ever really had a conversation about this in the past, is, you know, you've done all these performances, and you have been very successful of having them like up here when people are just doing things and going about their normal day, at least in the New York area, when you were on the East Coast. Do you have like someone who supports you, or do you have to apply for grants all the time? Like how do you fund a dance company in this pre-COVID and now post-COVID, I guess?
Okay. That's a great question. So can you hear me okay? Because these are not working so well now.
No,
Okay.
I forgot to put mine in. I got nervous.
Okay. All right. Well, let me know if you have a problem. Yeah, funding a dance company is a huge thing unto itself. Usually the artists, the creators, are not also good at the financial side of things. I did apply to a lot of grants when I lived in New York. I received a couple of them, but they took so much work with the writing and the editing that it's almost not worth it, because once you receive it, it's just a small part of what it would cost to put on a show. I also received one here in LA. We did a performance in Culver City, and it was a lot of work, but I got this one grant. Oh, thank you. So the main way I would fundraise for these performances was by throwing benefit parties. So every year, about a month before our big show, we would hold a benefit party, and we always tried to make those really fun. We had them at art galleries, at cultural spaces, at private apartments in New York that you know about. And we would charge admission to come to the party. And then we would also have a big auction, auctioning off anything from artwork to Pilates lessons to all of these things. And that was where most of the money would come to support the performances. And then every year I would send out letters requesting donations, and I would just piece it together. One time I had some very good luck, which was my company was invited to perform at the Fire Island Dance Festival, sponsored by Dancers Responding to AIDS. And that was a huge honor, because we were in a program with Mark Morris and Alvin Ailey and a couple of like the biggest companies. So it's kind of like it all came around. As I said, Mark Morris was the one who inspired me to start choreographing. But at that performance, we met a donor, and he really liked my work. He came to our show, and then after the show, he sent me a check for $5,000. So,
oh, perfect. Yes.
So that actually paid for the theater space. But that only happened once in our career.
Well, you know, so far, you know, that you're still going. So
right.
Somebody, who knows, somebody could see this or see your YouTube channel and, you know, and make a contribution, and that's welcomed. Yeah. And that's how these things happen. I was wondering, and I've seen many of the dances, but not all of them. And you've talked about different genres of dance. You talked about ballet and modern and things. So, like, what genre would you say? Is it one genre, or do you just pick and choose per the inspiration, or is it always a mashup of things?
It depends on the piece. For instance, I think in the beginning I would call my work modern. And then, for instance, I met a ballet dancer, Kyla, who inspired me to start choreographing some like contemporary dance on pointe. So then I started making, I don't know if you've seen With Their Backs Exposed. So that was my big contemporary ballet on pointe. So that piece had a contemporary ballet feel. Some of my other pieces are more contemporary. Some are inspired by cultural dances. I choreographed a piece called Sweet Brazil, so that has some Brazilian influence. I have another piece Gates of Fez. So I actually traveled to Morocco with one of my dancers and my husband and did some research. And so that piece had some Middle Eastern and Moroccan influence to it. So yeah, I'd say each piece has a slightly different flair, but it's generally contemporary or contemporary ballet.
Contemporary ballet. And then I you know, I'm trying to think. So would you say that they are like mashups though? Like there's some, like, it's not just Moroccan, it's contemporary ballet with Moroccan influences, or it's
Yes.
like it's brought together that way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then this question we kind of had, I'm fully transparent. We kind of had a conversation about this question, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway.
Okay.
So, have you watched any dancers on TikTok? Because I actually love TikTok, and I am a huge fan of a bunch of dancers on TikTok. I find that they also bring joy, and but they're very short. Like, you know, the TikToks are very short. So, have you seen any?
So, yeah, to be honest, I've mostly avoided TikTok because I have two young girls and I try to get them away from social media as much as possible. So they want to do TikTok and I don't want them to do TikTok because there are things out there that I don't want them to see. So because of that, I've kind of avoided it. But now that you bring it up, I'm thinking maybe I should watch more of these dancers and, you know, see what's going on out there. Yeah.
Well, I just think it's an interesting platform. You know, it's like you said in New York. You know, you can create a dance and put it out in a building or at Bryant Park or some kind of local street where you're allowed to perform, or in any of the parks, and then people will become your audience because they're there. And TikTok is similar in that sense that you put it out there and then you find an audience, and you find people that like your style of choreography, and it's pretty impressive. And they're short, and they're, you know, I really wasn't a big TikTok follower until COVID, you know, but being stuck at home all the time, I definitely got more into it. But I think it is, it started mostly with dancers, and I think that still is the main attraction is performers on TikTok. Yeah. And now it's ballooned into so many things, but I do think I like it. So if you're on there, I definitely will follow you on TikTok. So please let me know.
I mean, I do like the concept that TikTok is making dance more popular and accessible to everyone. So I agree with that. But yeah, maybe when my kids aren't around, I don't want them to get more addicted to social media.
Yeah, no, it's hard. But I would recommend, and you know, this is just food for thought, that you come up with your own TikTok dance challenge, because that's like what people do. And thanks for joining us. And what do you call it? Penka293. Thanks for joining us. And Haley Aringo. So, you know, I don't know if you've heard of these or if you've seen any, but the big thing on TikTok is to do a dance challenge. And then people pick them up, and then people do their own, and like it just kind of spirals. So I'm going to throw that out there. You know, for 2021, I think you come up with a TikTok dance challenge. And maybe you should do a mother-daughter dance challenge, since you have your two daughters.
Oh, yes. My older daughter is really into K-pop right now, as you know. So I'm sure
get the
we
whole
could do
family
something
involved. You know, that TikTok, you know, it welcomes families. I think it's a good thing. So I was wondering, do you have anything that you're working on now?
Well, as you mentioned, during this time of COVID, it's been very challenging. We were actually supposed to be presented by a theater in Santa Monica last year called Highways, and I was really excited to be presented by them. That was last May, so obviously that got canceled. And I was going to work on a collaboration with my composer, Sid Samberg, So these ideas are still like in the air. I'm hoping that the theater will reopen and be presenting us again. But during this COVID time, as you mentioned, I did that one video about being quarantined, and I did a second video in my friend's empty apartment before she moved in, where the dancers had to wear masks, and it was about all the issues that were happening in 2020. So when I do create my next work, I'm thinking of incorporating projection of some of this footage with the live dancers in front of it, and then relating to the footage. So
nice.
yeah, so multimedia, right. So since this was the first time I've delved into dance on film, I'm wondering, you know, how I can incorporate them together. David, the door just rang. Sorry. Hopefully it's not my kids.
Yeah, that's the beauty of live streaming. Everything's going on naturally. So I was wondering if you have any advice for the next generation of choreographers starting out, like somebody who's maybe like you in high school and thinking of pursuing dance and choreography as a career. What would you want to what do you wish somebody would have told you 20 years ago?
It's an interesting question because things have changed so much since I graduated, and things are still changing in terms of the social media mostly. Because now it's almost more about how you can promote yourself on social media and less about what you can do in the theater and live. But aside from all of that, I would say just really finding your voice and working on movement that feels good to you and that is special and different to other choreographers, and getting dancers to just join you and try out the movement and try to meet artists of all different types, visual artists and composers and film artists, and just keep working and creating until you find what's most meaningful to you. And if it's meaningful to you, then hopefully others will want to watch it. So that's my advice.
Yeah, so basically find, I guess it's just finding your team, right? Finding your collaborators.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. And just plugging away, because a lot of times I feel nervous about choreographing a new piece. Are people going to like it? And then I just push myself through it, even if I'm not in the mood, or if I don't feel like rehearsing that day, I just do it. And sometimes my best work comes out of those days where I didn't feel like rehearsing or didn't think I had what it takes to choreograph that section of the piece. So yeah, just keep pushing.
Yes. You got to do the work, and art is a lot of work. Any kind of art is a lot of work. So you have to have true commitment to it. So I was wondering, like, just, broad spectrum, is there anything that you would like to share with our viewers and listeners?
Well, I just want to say for the 20 years, how grateful I am for all the incredible dancers I've worked with, for the musicians and lighting designer and visual artists. I feel like I was lucky and just fortunate to be able to work with such a great group. Unlike being a painter where you're alone in a studio with your paintbrush and your supplies, choreography and running a company involves working with a lot of different people, and that's partly what I love about it. So I wouldn't be where I am without the support of all of those people. And just, I also want to say it was great. Just last week, we were able to have a live in-person anniversary party hosted by you. She's still here, you and Phil. And it was incredible just connecting with everyone in person during this time where it's not easy to connect in person. And just like brought back all the memories of the past 20 years. And I'm so glad that you could be there, Tracie. It was so nice to see you and to hear your thoughts about the company. So
I'm glad to be there and see everybody again, because since you've left New York, it's like everyone's you are the nexus of that community. So you brought all those people back together, and it was wonderful to see everybody again, and to celebrate your dance and your choreography and your dance company. It's truly a pleasure to watch your performances and see your artistry expand and grow, and see how you come up with things. And I was really, truly excited to learn what inspires you and what brings you to choose this, to, you know, create this piece of art versus something else. And I think you shared that with us, and I hope people appreciate that as well. And you know, I'm just really thankful for you coming on to my show. You're the first choreographer that I've gotten to chat with on the Move Well series, and I started this as a way to stay connected to people during COVID, to my community, and I'm starting to expand out. I'm still kind of movement based, but I'm trying to expand out and interview people from all different platforms and things, and get more interest. So if anybody has suggestions and wants to see someone interviewed on here, please feel free to DM me. And if you're interested in Caron's choreography, please check out her YouTube channel, see you on YouTube, or you can find her website or DM her if you have any questions. We're all reachable. That's one thing about modern technology. We're very reachable. And we look forward to hearing from you. We want comments and feedback and connection, and less of this disconnection. We want to be connected. And that is the key thing to being an artist. You're an artist because you want to connect things, and you want to connect people to people, and feelings and everything. I do want to mention that I will be back here next Tuesday. I can't believe it's going to be August 3rd at 8 p.m., not 5:30, 8 p.m., with our next guest, Jared Kaplan, to discuss the vision of Studio 26, which is a wonderful Pilates studio here in New York City that I used to work at. And I'm excited to talk to him and about the work that he's been doing, and catching up with him at where he's at now post the pandemic, or kind of, I don't know if we're really post it, we're still kind of in it. But everybody gets the idea. And, you know, I just want to thank Caron for joining me, and everybody for tuning in and staying with us for the whole interview. And I look forward to seeing you back in the stream soon. Great seeing you, Caron.
Thank you. Thank you for interviewing me. This is a great way to celebrate the 20th anniversary. So
yeah,
I appreciate.
No, I didn't even know that when I invited you on. That was like so serendipitous. I love that.
And it was great that we happened to see each other. We were able to see each other in New York right before this.
It was one of those things where just the universe came together in a very cool way.
Yes.
So I just wanted full disclosure. I did not know it was the 20th anniversary, and I reached out to Caron, but because we met so long ago, we both have like very old emails of each other. so it took a little bit of figuring out the right emails and connecting, and then she's like, "Oh, I'm having this anniversary party, and you haven't responded," and I'm like, "Well, I want you to come on my series, and you haven't responded." So and now everything came together. So thank you everybody for joining us, and also a special shout out and thank you to you, Fajita, for bringing us all together, because she was our nexus, and you know, and we're really grateful for that. So have a great night, everybody, and hopefully I'll see you here next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Take care. Bye.
Okay. Bye, Tracie. Thanks.